My parents are divorced and have been for 15-ish years. Basically, my father was a dirtbag who cheated, apologized, promised to never do it again, cheated, apologized, and so on for 20 years until my mom basically decided that all their kids have moved out, so duck putting up with him anymore. My mom is a doctor and a fairly high-paid one too. My father is a mechanic, so not poor, but not well off either. About 10 years ago, Mom helped me get a mortgage on my house as well as helping my sister and I buy a holiday home near the beach that our family shares. She gave us both equity and money, although her name isn't actually attached to our properties. And we were very grateful, so when she remarried about 2 years later, we offered to cover her costs to stay for 3 months in the holiday home. Of course, she took us up on our offer and we considered it our wedding gift to her. Meanwhile, in the last 15 years, my father has remarried 4 times. 3 of those have been destination weddings that cost us a lot to get to. The most recent one was a more moderate wedding, basically because he has a crap ton of debt from his other weddings, divorces. Both my sister and I contributed to the cost of the wedding in lieu of going because we didn't want to expose our families to the risk of virus. Our father repeatedly hinted about using the holiday home for their honeymoon like Mom did, and we both declined. Primarily because we have it rented out since we won't be able to visit due to the virus, and my sister needs the money as she has lost her job because of the virus, but also because he never helped us buy it and it feels like he only wants to use it because it's free. Anyway, it finally came to a head a fortnight ago, the weekend before the wedding, when he asked again and we both refused. He's now sulking and refusing to talk to us and has unfriended us so we can't see wedding photos. He is arguing that it's the least we can do since we refused to attend the actual wedding. Both my sister and I feel bad, but what were we supposed to do? Kick out our tenant? I say OP should let him sulk. OP house, OP decision, period. OP should tell him he should start a honeymoon fund of his own, because it sounds like he will be divorced and on the prowl again before too long. I'd let him know it's the last wedding gift I'm getting him. I don't get why some people get married so many times. They obviously don't take their vow seriously, so why volunteer to make them so many times? And now let's see if the community agrees with me. Disastrous Curve says, not the a hole and wouldn't be one even if your family didn't need extra money and virus wasn't out there. His unfriending move sounds kinda hilarious though. Are these wedding photos that much of a loss to you? Leslie Laugh says, not the a hole at all, and the fact that he is trying to punish you with the unfriending bit verifies that. You've already given him a wedding present by helping with some of the cost of it. That's enough. For him to ask for more is incredibly rude. Serlia says, not the yahoo. The house is being rented. It simply isn't available. Asking to kick out your tenant so he can honeymoon there is insanely unreasonable and with such short notice, perhaps not even legal depending on where you live. Story 2. I, a 32 female, have a cousin, Mia, 32 female, through my maternal side, and while we were never besties, I considered us on good terms. We got a little closer when my mom, stepdad, siblings, and I moved to the same city my cousin and her parents were in high school. She'd show me around and invite me to group activities that she was at, which I really appreciated. But our personalities were just too different for us to consistently hang out together. During the summers of my high school life, I would go spend it with my dad and, coincidentally, a guy named Gene, 33 male, would spend his summers with his aunt, whose house was right next door to Mia's. Mia had the hots for him instantly, but for how she would whine about never getting to date him, I could tell he wasn't interested. I'd never seen him in person as a teenager, but Mia had pictures and I agreed he was definitely a good-looking guy. And the fact that he lived in another country and had a cute accent made him all the more attractive in Mia's eyes. Despite wanting Gene, Mia would go on dates with other guys, which I didn't begrudge her, but I did take exception when she was seen making out with my boyfriend at a party. Mia claimed that it was an accident brought on by the alcohol. And just as I was starting to forgive her, Mia revealed she was pregnant and my ex was the father. That sealed the deal for me, and outside of big family events, I didn't see Mia at all. Mia and my ex's parents pressured them to marry before the baby was born, and I did not attend the wedding despite my family's pleas, demands. It was honestly one of the reasons why I moved in with my dad, his wife, and other siblings during college. After college, I got a job at a company that was doing business with the company that Gene was at, and we officially met there. Gene recognized me as Mia's cousin and had a "what a small world" type of reaction. I had to explain to Gene that Mia and I drifted apart, and he stopped bringing her up. After that, we had a semi-casual relationship, and I did genuinely find him charming. It wasn't until after I left the company and got a new job that Gene asked me out, and I agreed. When we started to get more serious, I got more detailed about what went down with me and Mia, and Gene confessed that he was aware of her crush, he wasn't interested, and just played dumb instead of being straightforward. Fast forward to now, and I'm 5 months pregnant. Gene is the father, and I recently made a post with a pic of us together, and that's how Mia found out. I've been getting calls and texts from Mia. Her mom, a few of her friends stating that I'm the a-hole for not reaching out to Mia and giving her a heads up at the very least. I knew that Mia might feel some type of way about this, but I honestly didn't care. However, she's apparently devastated, so am I the a-hole. It's actually none of her business. Mia was never even in a relationship with this guy. She just had a crush on Gene while she was with OP boyfriend, got pregnant and got married to him. She is in the wrong and the OP family should stick up for OP, and now let's hear the community's opinion. Alien Overlord 1001 says, not the a-hole. Did she give you a heads up about making out with your boyfriend? Was she worried about you when she got pregnant by him? The difference is, she actually did something with your boyfriend, and you simply met and fell for someone she once had a crush on, but didn't feel anything for her at all. Mia needs to get over it. Karma can be a B. Top Necessary 5003 says, not the i-hole. It was half her life ago and someone she never even dated, and she's the one who made an ongoing cousin relationship untenable. Story 3. Before we were married, my 34 female and husband 42 male were in a horrific car accident, both almost decayed. Since we were unmarried, we each received separate 8-figure settlements, literal duck you money, as we were hit by a major carrier 18-wheeler in 2016. We both still work full-time. I have a 6-figure salary, my husband's 7-figure salary. Sounds braggy, sorry, but it's important. Now to the point. My brother, Mike, 38 male, proposed to my now sister-in-law, Alice, 32 female, in 2017 and married in 2018. I love them both and would burn the world down for them, no questions asked. But I think they see my husband and I as an ATM. Post-settlements, my husband and I paid off all our student loans. I have a master's, he has a PhD, so not cheap. I also, without his knowledge as a surprise, paid Mike's student loans with the help of my sister-in-law. Would have paid sister-in-laws too, but she had a full scholarship, so no loans. Mike and Alice also paid for their own wedding as Alice's family couldn't afford it but chipped in where they could. It was a beautiful wedding. They stayed within budget. Mike realized he wouldn't be able to take their dream honeymoon and asked if my husband and I could loan him some money for the cruise he wanted to take her on. We agreed and asked him to pay us back within a year of the trip. He agreed. To this day, we haven't seen a dime, but aren't mad over it. Alice and Mike hit a rough patch with some health issues, then virus, and now here we are. My sister-in-law can be a lot. She also likes to tell me how to parent my kids. 5 male, 3 male, and 1 male. She and Mike don't have any, and don't plan to. Fine, their choice. My oldest had his birthday party over the weekend, and in true 5-year-old fashion, asked for a trucks thing. We decked the house out. Day was going well, until Alice made a comment about my 3-year-old having a meltdown over not getting any presents. I told her he's little and expressed emotions how he knows. Not a super big deal for me, as he's pretty easily redirected. She commented how I'm enabling him to become a Karen later in life, and how she wouldn't tolerate it if she had kids. I quipped it was a good thing they weren't planning on having any, and went back to my little guy. She said something to the effect of poor parenting. And in a snap judgment, I told her I paid for her honeymoon, and she and Mike owed me $7,000, and once I got that money back, I would take her input into consideration. She grabbed Mike and stormed out of the party. At night, my brother, sister-in-law, and her sister blew up my phone, calling me in a hole for telling her. My brother is pissed because it was supposed to be between us, something I don't recall us talking about. I thought she knew the whole time. Am I in a hole? I don't think OP is in the wrong here, even though OP did go nuclear. Sister-in-law shouldn't have piled on the 3-year-old who didn't get a toy when she got the $7K she wasn't actually entitled to, and not planning on paying it back. I guess that is the equivalency. Publicly and repeatedly telling someone how to parent their kids when you owe them money with no attempt at repayment isn't smart. She was judging OP, so OP snapped back. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Space Jesus is here says, they are the a whole blow me away here. Are people really missing the context? Sister-in-law is accusing OP of being a bad mom who is raising spoiled brats who want unearned gifts. OP is telling sister-in-law that she should hold off with that line of criticism until she has paid back her honeymoon, which in its late and unpaid state is currently an unearned gift. Sister-in-law is exactly the spoiled brat she's accusing OP of raising. It's absolutely fair to tell someone to save their criticism of your financial choices and parenting choices until after they've paid back the money they owe you, not the a whole. She is clearly jealous of your life and is finding anything, and I mean anything, to tear you down. Anyone knows a 3-year-old will have a difficult time understanding why they are being left out. The comment of poor parenting, when she has none herself, is all the evidence you need to verify her intent here. Secondly, if her husband came to you for a loan, it is reasonable to believe he has spoken to sister-in-law about it, unless he otherwise said exclusively to keep it between the two of you. Her reaction seems to imply she knew. If she had no knowledge, then would continue to fight and claim that what you are saying is false, especially since she wants to pick a fight, as seen by her comments toward you. not automatically accept your word as truth when she won't accept it about how you choose to parent. Living Assumption 272 says, not the keyhole. You thought she already knew. And it seems you've had enough with her insufferable and rude comments about your parenting. She shouldn't have kept pushing you. Update. Story 4. I've kept my mouth shut about my sister-in-law's comments for 5 years and never said anything. I usually vent to my husband and move on. When my 3-year-old started to have his meltdown, I intentionally pulled him to my bedroom away from everyone to calm him down before allowing him to return to the party. My sister-in-law followed me to add her 2 cents in on how I was handling my little guy. I asked her for privacy, but she didn't leave the room, which annoyed me. Also, for those saying the honeymoon was a gift, it was not. My brother said he would pay it back. Husband and I fully expected to be paid back, and still do. I honestly didn't know my brother had never told Alice about borrowing the money. I figured borrowing that kind of money would be shared with a soon-to-be spouse. Husband and I talked a bit more, and I will be apologizing to my sister-in-law for what I said. I've talked to both Alice and Mike separately and together regarding Alice's comments about my parenting and how I didn't appreciate it in the past, but the comments still come. When I apologize, I intend on letting both of them know if the comments continue, they won't be allowed around my kids. I, a 58-year-old female, have one daughter, Clara. Clara never went to university because she said it wasn't for her and that would be a waste of money. Clara is now engaged. She told me she wants to go to university now before they have kids. So she has a backup plan if something goes wrong and she is left with nothing. She said her plan is to go to university for 3 years. We live in the UK, studying psychology. Then she'll have kids and be a stay-at-home mom immediately after she graduates and use her degree if she ever needs to. I asked why psychology, and she said it just seems like the easier degree to make a career out of. The problem here is she wants me to pay for it. I'm about to retire, and I really don't want to pay for her degree that she likely won't ever use. I'm also skeptical about how useful a degree will be in the future for her if she has no experience working a job in that industry and got the degree long before she has to use it. I told her I'm not rich enough to just pay for a degree that likely won't be used, and she should have a conversation with her fiancé about what they'll do if they split up after she's been a stay-at-home mom. I even suggested she and her fiancé should pay for it together, but she said they'll need to save all their money towards having kids in the next few years. I said I need to save my money too for my retirement, and I'm not wasting it on a degree she doesn't plan to use or has passion for. She said I'm being unfair to her and that I should be worried about her being left destitute if her fiancé leaves her one day. I said she should be putting all the money she makes now into an account for herself and creating savings or investments in case anything happens, instead of making me spend thousands of pounds on a degree she probably won't ever use. She told me not to expect her to have me as part of her family anymore when I don't care about her future. Am I the a-hole here? White Hart Lane fan says, not the a-hole. What has she been doing to make money over the last 8+ years? It would be one thing if she decided to go to school to build a career for herself, but this just comes across as super selfish and a waste of money. I know university is cheaper in the UK versus the US, but I still don't understand her rationale. Holiday Horse 310 says, she is 28, old enough to have gone to school and graduated, old enough to have a job and save, definitely old enough to be considered an adult. There's absolutely no reason for you to pay for her choices. Your first priority is you. Do not pay. You are not the a-hole, she is. Tarzan Kitty says, not the a-hole. A bachelor's in psychology is completely worthless. The only thing that would be more worthless is a 10-year-old psych degree with no experience or continuing education. My grandfather died 5 years ago. After his funeral, my grandmother, who was his second wife, gave me his watch. The watch is made of solid gold and worth a few $1,000s, but not insanely valuable. At the time, none of my other relatives asked about it. My grandmother died last week. My mom was her only daughter and has 5 half-siblings, who are my grandfather's children by his first wife. My mom and her half-siblings generally have good relationships, even though some of my half-aunts and uncles weren't terribly fond of my grandmother. This is especially true of my oldest half-uncle, who considers himself the leader of the family, despite being an almost 70-year-old ne'er-do-well. I remember many instances from my childhood where this uncle would insult my grandmother when my grandfather wasn't around. I wore my grandfather's watch to my grandmother's funeral. Afterward, the family gathered at my grandparents' house for dinner. As the booze began to flow, my uncle noticed the watch. He asked where I got it, and I told him that my grandmother had given it to me 5 years ago. He responded with a simple, "Oh, that's nice," and seemed to drop the subject. However, as the meal continued, he kept bringing it up. I forget the exact exchange, but by the end, my uncle said that the watch wasn't my grandmother's to give away since she was only the stepmom. I said that my grandmother may have been the stepmom, but she was still my grandfather's wife and I was still his grandson. My uncle responded by saying that the watch should have gone to someone who carries my grandfather's name. By this point, I was angry and drunk and answered, maybe she would have given you the watch if you didn't treat her like crap, or maybe she just knew that I wouldn't pawn it to keep the lights on. The table went silent and the gathering broke up soon afterward. The next day, many of my relatives told me that I needed to apologize to my uncle. My mom even suggested that I give my uncle the watch as a peace offering. My mom grew up as the odd child out, and as a result, has a tendency to placate her half-siblings even when they're being unreasonable. I told her that I don't care what her half-brother thinks, that he and his children are trash, and that I have as much right to my grandfather's property as any of them do. Am I the a-hole for keeping the watch? Cold thanks, sis. Not the a-hole. It's your watch. Don't you dare give it up. If Grandpa wanted someone specific to have it, then he would have written a will. Okay, I have an opinion here, sis. Not Yahoo. Unless your grandfather made a written contract with someone, or left a will that explicitly assigned the watch to someone, any property would become his wife's upon his passing. She decided to give you the watch, making it now your property. Your uncle has no claim to it.